born in a war zone, raised in hiding, forged by fear, and decades later, he would shake the foundations of global power using nothing but money, timing, and ideology. George Soros made $1 billion in one day and broke the British economy to do it. But this isn't just the story of a trade. It's the story of a man who survived the unimaginable and then used the cracks in the system to reshape the world itself. The day one man broke Britain, Black Wednesday. There are days that change history, not with bullets, but with numbers. On September 16, 1992, Britain fought to defend its currency from collapse. Interest rates were raised twice. Desperation flooded the markets. Billions were spent in a matter of hours. And yet, one man was on the other side of the trade, calm, silent, and certain. By the time the sun set, the Bank of England had lost $3.5 billion, 0 cents. That man, George Soros, had made $1 billion in profit. In a single day, they called it Black Wednesday. A nation's economy humiliated, its leaders blindsided. And Soros? He didn't flinch. He hadn't just predicted the fall, he had engineered it. This wasn't just finance, this was warfare. Psychological, economic, and precise. But how did a man with no army, no title, no country of his own become powerful enough to shake the foundations of an empire? But what happens to a boy raised on fear when he learns that fear itself is a weapon? To find out, we have to go back, not to Wall Street, but to the ruins of war-torn Europe, where George Soros learned the first and most brutal rule of survival: disappear or be destroyed. Forged in fear, the invisible child of Budapest. In Nazi-occupied Hungary, death didn't knock. It was handed out on paper. At just 14 years old, George Soros was given deportation slips to deliver, slips that sealed the fate of entire families. His job was to smile, pretend, and walk away. But he didn't break. He learned. His father, Tivadar, had survived Russian prison camps. He understood something few did, that strength wouldn't save them, only deception would. He forged identities, bribed guards, separated the family, told George, stay hidden, become someone else. And so he did. George became a shadow, a ghost among monsters, passing as a Christian boy in a world that would kill him if they knew the truth. Where other children played, he calculated, watched, memorized every rule so he could one day twist them. His classmates returned from war carrying trauma. Soros returned carrying something colder, the belief that rules don't protect people, only understanding how to bend them does. He wasn't broken by the war, he was built by it, in silence, in lies, in moments. Where survival meant becoming invisible. And as the Nazis retreated, George Soros emerged, not with scars, but with strategy, the kind the world had never seen before. The philosopher who weaponized uncertainty. London, post-war. George Soros is broke, invisible, and surviving off scraps, washing dishes by night, studying by day. But in his mind, something dangerous is taking shape. At the London School of Economics, he finds Karl Popper, a philosopher who challenges the very idea of truth. Popper teaches that knowledge is always flawed and that perception shapes the world, not reality. For Soros, it's not just theory, it's revelation. He calls it reflexivity, the idea that markets don't reflect reality, they create it. If people believe something will rise, they act like it will. That action makes it rise, until the illusion cracks. Most economists laughed. Soros didn't. He saw that financial markets were not stable systems. They were fragile illusions fueled by belief, fear, and momentum. To others, it was a philosophical concept. To Soros, it was a blueprint for control. He wasn't just learning economics, he was preparing to stage a heist, not on money, but on global perception itself. And when the right opportunity came, he would pull the trigger. The predator who hunted nations. George Soros wasn't interested in stocks. He wanted to bet on the fate of nations. In 1970, he launched the Quantum Fund. But it wasn't a hedge fund. It was a war machine. Soros didn't dabble in portfolios. He attacked entire economies. He shorted currencies, predicted collapses, used massive leverage that could destroy him if he was wrong, and everyone thought he would be. But he wasn't gambling, he was calculating. He saw bubbles before they burst, debt before it drowned, lies behind every government smile. When Britain joined the European exchange rate mechanism in the early 1990s, Soros found the fatal flaw. The British pound was being propped up by pride, not economics. While the public trusted their leaders, Soros quietly built a $10 billion position against the currency. The British government tried to hold the line, raising interest rates, making statements, burning through reserves. But on Black Wednesday, Soros struck. The pound collapsed, Britain fell, and Soros made $1 billion in a single day. He hadn't just broken a currency, he had sent a global message. No nation is too big, no system is too sacred. From that moment forward, Soros was no longer just a financier, he was a myth, a warning, a force to be feared. But wealth was never the final destination. He had already conquered markets, and now he was ready to move from markets to minds. The architect of the invisible empire. With his fortune secured, George Soros turned toward something even more powerful than money: influence. He founded the Open Society Foundations, and with it began reshaping the world, not through markets, but through movements, education reform, media networks, civil rights, evolutions, over 100 countries and billions of dollars behind them. He no longer traded currencies, he traded ideologies. To his followers, he was a visionary, a man using his wealth to open minds and fight oppression. To his critics, he was a shadow operator, pulling strings from behind a philanthropic mask. And the truth? That depends entirely on which part of the world you're standing in. He once admitted to having messianic fantasies, said he saw himself as a kind of god, and now, with presidents listening and entire nations reacting to his moves, it didn't sound like fantasy anymore. He had rewritten how the game was played, not just in finance, but in culture, politics, even belief. His name became a symbol. For some, hope; for others, fear. The ghost, who never stops watching. George Soros is 93 years old, but the war he started never really ended. His name still ignites fires in parliaments, protests, headlines, and conspiracy threads. To some, he is a savior of free thought. To others, a puppet master pulling strings behind the curtain of democracy. And in that blur between truth and narrative, Soros thrives. Because the boy who once delivered death notices under a false name never wanted to be loved, he wanted to understand the world so completely that he could reshape it, not with violence, but with belief, with fear, with pressure applied in just the right place, until the system bends. He built an empire on chaos, on perception, on cracks that no one else could see, until he made them impossible to ignore. But when you manipulate belief long enough, you become a prisoner of it. A myth, a mirror, a projection of whatever people need you to be. Hero, villain, god, ghost. What happens when the illusion begins to turn on the illusionist? The world may never agree on who George Soros really is, but one thing is certain: he's still watching, and the next move might already be in play. Thanks for watching, guys. If you found value in this video and learned something new, give it a thumbs up, twice if you did. It helps us reach more people who are eager to learn and take charge of their financial future. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell.